Today's a special one for me. I'm sitting down with someone I've pretty much known my whole career, Julie Tolliver. Julie and I like to joke that we grew up in the industry together, because honestly, we did. Julie has one of the coolest career transitions I've ever seen. She came from 2 decades in commercial construction to becoming one of the sharpest home performance experts I know. She's worked with energy alliances, built her own proprietary estimating app, trained countless homeowners on air sealing, and has an approach to phase project planning that the whole industry could learn from. Today, we're talking air sealing, building envelopes, phase planning, very important, working with HVAC contractors, educating homeowners, and future-proofing comfort. Plus, you'll learn about what it really looks like to build long-term, practical, affordable solutions for real homes and real families. Julie's brilliant, blunt, and hilarious. And to boot, she's going to be a guest instructor in some of our upcoming trainings in her region. So let's get into it. Julie and I go back a long, long way. I like to say we grew up in this industry together because we kind of did. Like, I didn't know shit about it when I got into it, and I met her soon after, and she didn't know shit about it when she got into it. Julie probably had a leg up on me at that time because she had at least worked in the construction industry. I worked in the restaurant industry and came straight into this industry from college. So, and I wasn't in college for this. I was taking environmental engineering, a basically totally different thing. I became aware of this industry and got into it. So Julie, go ahead and let's just tell your story, tell your background, tell everybody how you got here and who you are.
So thanks, Jeremy. And I'm awfully proud of you for being here when you do consider our roots and all that. So my background is commercial construction, like Jeremy said. I spent 20 years building bigger projects around the city of Cincinnati. And I was a project manager estimator. I really enjoyed production work. And I also really value tradespeople and the work that people do with their hands. The work with hands and the dignity of trades has been kind of a guiding force in my entire career since I was 20 years old. When the Great Recession hit in 2009, commercial construction follows the residential sector in its collapse by a year or two. So I was able to stay employed until summer of 2010. And when the writing came on the wall that I was probably going to lose my job because commercial construction had by then tanked, I decided I would go for Act 2 in my career and figure out something else because I was so frustrated with all of the regulations and schedule issues in commercial construction, specifically that it was run by college guys and the tradespeople had been so diminished that we no longer talked about projects in terms of the concrete and steel and other building elements. It was all what was written on paper and, schedules and the low bidder gets the job. And it just seemed like it was getting just run into the ground. And it was really hard to watch the degradation of trades over the course of my career from 1990 through 2010. And so I just got tired of that whole paper war with the whole commercial construction thing. We weren't building things, we were building cases for court. So I was thrilled when I got laid off. I had some money in my 401k, pretty stable otherwise, and I've always been a homebody. I've always liked to spend time at home, kind of an introvert, believe it or not. And I've always wondered what makes houses the way they are. So I've torn down walls from time to time. I'll poke through here, it just kind of playing around with things. And the house that I lived in before the last house was a Cape Cod, and it was hot in the summer. I remember putting like a curtain across where the stairs were to try to keep some of the heat down in the wintertime because it was just going up. And so the first floor would be cold and the second floor would be hot in the winter. So as a homebody, I wanted to find out what made houses tick. And then the ARRA funding came out, the big bank bailout and all that. And along with it came the money for the home energy retrofits. And so the BPI training, Building Performance Institute training, was in Cincinnati. So before I ever even got laid off, I attended a class taught by Terry Clausing, who's kind of the godfather of all things home performance in our region.
Yep.
And I took a week off of work and I went to BPI training and certification where I learned to be a home performance energy auditor. And I got laid off. I was forced to work a couple of months after my layoff because I hadn't told anyone that I was starting a business. I went through all kinds of entrepreneurial training and all that kind of stuff, business plan building and all. And I went out to hang my shingle and found that nobody was really interested in paying me some money to come in and do some testing and tell them what's wrong with their house. At that time, the Greater Cincinnati Energy Alliance had gotten some of that ARRA money, and they were doing rebates and incentives to homeowners who upgraded their homes and, thermal HVAC to certain thresholds. They would offset, half of the cost up front. It was a pretty good deal. So, okay, that's cool. I decided I would hitch my wagon to the GCEA, and I think were we paid anything for the energy audits? $50, $150?
Yeah. Well,
50?
we got paid. The contractor got paid the whole amount. The homeowner paid $50, and we got paid $400 in the background. So they
I never did.
paid us the balance of $350.
I never did.
Oh, well, you should have. That's the way it was supposed to work.
And I came in after you. So, and there were so many changes in the program.
Correct.
Which and there's another. We could talk about that too. So, anyway, I started doing some energy audits, and I quickly learned through my little bit of training that one of the most important things to do on just about any existing home is air sealing. And so that's cool. Well, now I'm writing my little report. I'm making these recommendations, and I'm going to refer these people to who? Well, there really wasn't anybody. I think, Jeremy, you were one, but you were a home performance contractor. You were doing your own audits and all that stuff.
That's originally how we met. Remember, we met at the coffee shop, and you're like, hey, I want to just sub out air sealing to you. And I was a little bit of a meanie about it. I'm like, ha, 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 we already do that or whatever.
Yeah,
so
you were, let me be clear, you were an arrogant ass.
Oh, okay.
But you were that guy, because you were the first one in the city, and you were all in, and you were all over the news with the Greater Cincinnati Energy Alliance. So I decided, well, I got to play in this kid's sandbox. So, okay, we'll deal with that. No, and you really weren't interested in subbing work. You just wanted the pie, which is fine. We were probably
so here's a little.
We were so young.
Yes, well, that's true too. But here's the funny thing. I did not even. Two things. One, I did want to keep it in-house, obviously, because we had mouths to feed and all that. And number two, I did not even see how air sealing as a standalone business outside of the home performance model could work on its own at that time. So I wasn't really sure about what you were doing. But the interesting thing about you is it's funny that you may not even realize this, but you knew yourself enough to know that that's something you would be really, really good at, because you are a high attention to detail, high planning person, and to really do good air sealing, that is what it takes. And I just, in retrospect, I find it interesting that you knew yourself good enough even at that time to know that's what you should be focusing on.
Yeah. Well, by that time I couldn't find anybody to do the work. Well, I found Tiburon Construction, Tony Winston, who ended up to be kind of a mentor, and she's out of the business now, as is kind of everyone else from that period. But I went to work. She called. We were doing something, and she called me, knowing that we're basically competitors. And she said, "Hey, can you work in the attic?" And I said, "Sure, why not?" Because I can't find anybody to do the work. And she said, "Well, I got crews out in the attic, and they just don't know what to do. Could you maybe put your heads together with them?" So I said, "Okay." So I went into the attic, and this is before even I met with you at Lackman's that day. So I went and I worked in the field with Tony's crews, and Paul Helms would deliver materials and stuff. But it was, we would go into these 100-year-old homes and figure out how we air seal this. So I'd sit and look at their crew, and where's the envelope supposed to be? And so it define the envelope became kind of the name of the game. And then how do we seal it? So I got. This is scary now, right? Because there isn't really anybody that does this work. You can see a lot of details. You can go podcasts. There's a lot of good information. Green Building Advisor, Energy Vanguard, Allison Bales, Joe Stebrick. There's a lot of really good information about how to do this, but there really wasn't any information about the cost of these things, means and methods. So I had to develop all that myself. There really wasn't much of a support group. There was a guy named Mike Rogers. What was his company? Mike was
Green
a
Homes
badass.
America. Yeah, oh yeah, we talked about him on what's going to be a previous podcast once he's there. But yeah, Mike is a huge mentor to a lot of us in this industry. He was the badass for sure. Yep.
He was, and so his specialty was making financial sense out of this business and how you manage your business by the numbers, and what things you should track, and how you should build out, your whole financial picture from tools and equipment to overhead and profit.
And Mike, sidebar, Mike, the name of our business, HVAC to Home Performance, that's Mike's coin phrase. He actually, that was an article he wrote and everything else. That's where that name came from. And when I named it that, he called me and said, hey, man, giving me shit for stealing his name. But then he's like, no, I love it. I love it. So, yeah.
That's great. Cool. And we've lost him since. And in fact, I had hoped to engage with him, but we lost a great one too soon. But he really advocated doing the work by the numbers, which is right up my alley. That's what I did in the commercial construction world, understanding productivity, the relationship between equipment, material, workers, having the right tools, just all that stuff, how crews work together and gel. That was something that I've always loved, whether it's forming concrete or erecting structural steel. Those were the two self-performed work items that I managed, myself in the field. So Mike Rogers really spoke my language. So he was great. So I went into the attic with Tony's crew and I started writing things down and taking pictures. And so kind of coining some phrases. Well, this is a top of wall. This is a balloon wall. And I'm just getting to see these things in person for the first time. And where does the envelope go? And it was hot. It was summer. It was the summer of 2011 by that point. And so I started tracking production. So how many hours did it take for us to do these knee wall dams? And, how many, I'll say how many men, but many times it's women. I just use it because it's man hours. It's just industry term. It doesn't have anything to do with gender. So how many man hours, how many linear feet per man hour can we install of these different types of things? And so I had a partner who had awesome skills in carpentry and plumbing and electrical. Like he was kind of an all-around guy and working as a handyman, basically. And so we joined forces.
So tell us why that's important. What do you have to do? You have to do what to do what? To do home performance, you have to do deconstruction, right? You have to take some shit apart or else you're not really doing it. I mean, nine times out of 10, right? You have to take some shit apart, but you have to, number one, know where to go to take it apart. First, you have to understand where the envelope kind of is right now and understand what are the resultant problems. So you look at a house, you speak to the client. You can find out so many clues just from a good walk around with a homeowner. One walk around and then follow up phone call because, I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but one thing I always do at first visit when I leave, I'll say to clients, okay, now you'll find that your awareness about your home has changed. Yep. So from here, I want you to think about what you smell, feel, see, notice in different times of the season of the day when the temperatures, here and there, if you want to track some temperatures and humidity. But understanding, and so taking that information along with what I know, having been through and deconstructed a lot, know where to deconstruct, have the tools, material, and equipment, everything you need to do that. And the guy that can put it back together and make it look good. That's the important part. Put it back together. Mm-hmm. Well, and then bathroom exhaust fans, for example, are a critical thing that are just typically really done poorly. So doing that correctly, from the number of bends in the pipe to the smooth wall pipe, or when do you use the flex, making sure that it's vented outside in a way that it's not going to cause ice dams or humidity to come back in the attic. It's and all this work you're doing, to deconstruct, it's not always in the attic, but sometimes it is in the attic to get from one attic to another where people say, you can't get there. I'll watch, we'll get there.
And so we did. And he shared that same curiosity and that same, got to know what's there. Why is this happening? And so we really enjoyed every house was a mystery and we were there to solve it. And so I created these scopes of work, and then I offer the clients, what do you want to do? I would explain. I would go into an attic. The two of us would spend 3 hours in an attic, and then blower door testing, and GCEA $50. So losing a lot of money every time we did it. But I'd come back with these reports that were cool. The homeowners could see for the first time what's behind their walls. And when I start pointing at things and saying, well, this is a chase above your bathroom, and so the attic air is exchanging with your bathroom air, and so this is why the humidity is doing this. When you can give the homeowners the x-ray eyes to see behind the wall and show them what's deficient that we can improve, they become willing or passionate about getting that work done themselves. So spending all that time was really important. Tommy would take a whole bunch of pictures. I'd take them back to the office, download the pictures, put them in a report, do all this. And then pricing the air sealing work, because of my background in commercial construction, we did estimated everything by the piece. So anyone who's done commercial construction estimating knows that every widget is different, although everything is a square foot of contact area when you're forming a wall, how high up it is, how tall the wall is, how thick it is, how much rebar, everything, all of those things you have to take into account when you assign the production rate or estimate the number of hours it's going to take to do that work. So in keeping with my training and what I was comfortable with, I started pricing air seal and insulate work that way. So I would, as I came back to the office and went through all the pictures and all that stuff, I would draw the job on a computer, starting with the auditor's site. I would take a lot of measurements while we were on site.
And this is the pre-technology era, too, as far as all these cool measuring tools that we have now, LiDAR and all that. We were using tape measures and laser measurers at the best. It was probably the best technology we had for measuring at the time. And you were doing all this stuff in the house, which is really impressive. This week's episode is brought to you by NOSO. Ready to 10x your technicians? Field service teams are missing out on revenue. NOSO's AI ensures you capture every opportunity and finish every job with zero paperwork. From diagnosing tricky issues on site to automatically writing up job reports, their AI assistant, NOSO, supports your technicians at every step. To learn more about NOSO, click the link in our show notes or head to their website at noso.so. You built one of the most robust calculators that I've ever seen. I've seen paid ones, I've seen non-paid ones, I've seen a lot of them over the years. So let's tell everybody about what it took to build that and what it actually is. It's pretty cool. It's one of your very unique things that I have not seen before. Yeah.
So I did a whole bunch of spreadsheet things and integrated spreadsheet things, and I ended up, so in those days it was paper and pen, and you take it back to the office and you got to translate all this stuff into a drawing, and you can't get things to match, but you have to know how much of what is there so that you can get an accurate estimate. And if you just throw some time at it, then we don't really know in the field what we're supposed to do. If you just throw some time at it, who knows if it's going to be accurate or not? And the only way to know if it's accurate is to test it. So to go in and do that work, keep track of how long it does take to do each one of those activities, and then plug that back in, that production rate back into whatever estimating software or program that you're using, which, like I said, at that time, it was Excel spreadsheets. So it took way too much time to do it. And I think it was around 2015 or 16 that I bought my first iPad Pro. And the iPad Pro was a game changer. It was big. I could take it in the field. I could, write stuff. I could take pictures with it. It was like an all-in-one thing. So that was a game changer. And when I got that iPad, I also decided that I needed to create my own app so that I could go. My dream still is to go into the field, take the pictures, take the measurements, put in all that stuff into the program, and then spit out a scope of work and an estimate either on the spot or with just a bit of tweaking after having gone back to the office. So that was my dream. And I spent a bunch of time and a bunch of money putting together this FileMaker program that did exactly what I wanted it to do. So I can change, and some of it's a little hinky still, and I haven't been using it that much lately. But it is, it's a proprietary, kind of app. So I've got all the production rates for any home performance work that I've ever done, including, some drywall and carpentry stuff, because, whenever we've done it, we've tracked it. And I've got I think I've probably got about 3,000 work scope items in there, along with tried and true production rates. This is how long it takes to put the work in place, and then material. And to where, for air sealing the top of wall, you can of foam. Well, how much foam do you need for this house? Well, how much of this foam do you use for a linear foot of wall? Well, I know that because I've tracked it. And so I can just plug in today's price for a can of foam, and it will know that I will get X number of linear feet out of a can. So it knows how much material cost to put into that project. And it worked pretty well, although I never got it done. I never got it to the point where I could just do it in the field. It was all back in the office. So I still had to take everything back in the office. But I worked that way from 2016. It probably took me till 17 to get it operational. And then I used it up until 2023, beginning of 2023, which is when I stopped doing field work. But that's a different story. Yep. So I was able to produce really good estimates for how long it will take. So number of man hours that it's going to take. From there, it's easy to schedule. Okay, well, this is a knee wall space. That works best with 3 people doing this, this, and this. So from there, you take the knee wall scope, divide it by 3 guys. We can see it takes 4 days. I always had a little bit of, cushion time in there, contingency time. Oh, also my overhead and profit rates were variable in the program. So I had an hourly amount for every man hour for small tools and equipment, $1.60 or whatever per man hour. I could change the man hour rate. But the estimates and the resultant schedules were pretty daggone accurate. So if I estimate a seal and insulate job, no matter how complicated it is, I can tell you how long it does take. So I know that from the estimate, and so that was kind of realizing my dream, but still super time consuming.
How did that change how you present it to the clients? Like, I know you're one of the best people that I've seen at presenting phased plans and carrying those out over time. Yeah. So how did that just tell us about what you do there and how that calculator played or didn't play into that particular format?
So as I was building the whole, and I'm still building the process. Let me think to back then. How did it go? So I would go into a client's home, and it, let me finish up with the GCEA thing first, right? So I think we ended up using Snug Pro. And so that was the report format that we were supposed to do. I always did my own report as a supplemental thing because that was easier to explain to a homeowner exactly what I was talking about. I did it with the flow that I would use and, introducing them to all these concepts. It's not, you can't just start talking about tops of walls and building envelopes and stuff out of the gate. You got to kind of ease into it with some pictures and examples. And so we did the Snug Pro reports that would give you a savings to investment ratio. So this is the number of dollars that you're saying it's going to take to air seal this house. You guess that you're going to get 20% reduction in airflow. And then it tells you whether it meets the savings to investment ratio. And if it doesn't, then the Greater Cincinnati Energy Alliance would not pay the incentive on that measure. So yeah. I got a lot of pushback to say, what you're doing is too expensive. Your scope is too expensive. And I kept saying, well, this is the number of hours it takes to do this scope of work. Which piece of this attic work should I delete to get the savings to investment ratio to match? And so we could talk about those things. And if I'm going all the way out to the end of a thing and I'm face planning to do that slows me down. So that's a slower production rate. But it's invariably that place that's really hard to get to or the place that needs deconstruction. That's the apex of the problem. So if I skip that place, I am putting some kind of a Band-Aid, glossing over the original problem and I'm doing other stuff. So I'm increasing efficiency. Yes. I'm decreasing airflow. Yes. But am I tackling the problem? No, not really. Who is anyone to tell me that what I'm proposing to do based on what I know, having done the work, is too expensive? It's not too expensive. It was a fair price for the work that I was recommending to do.
I think that program taught us all that payback was a terrible conversation to be having about energy efficiency and energy efficiency in general. Where the payback and energy efficiency conversation often ends for programs like that, there's still a lot of comfort and health and indoor air quality and everything else to be had in the home by completing the measures correctly and thoroughly. And that costs a lot more money than the programs would pay out for what we call skim work, for just doing, blow and go, or just air seal insulate, light, or whatever it was they were calling it. Yeah. I know during that, I had huge controversy with that program, just because, they were always like wanting us to stop the work before the work should have been stopped. And yes. We as professionals were there and we saw like, no, this house is not fixed yet. And they're like, well, that's all we're going to pay for, and that really just, and the way that it was presented, it would have been okay if they said these other things matter, but they were telling the homeowners like, well, this is it, the way the program had to be presented. It made us have to sort of present it to the homeowners like this was the end all be all of the conversation, when really there was a lot more work to be done if it had been presented in the right way. And I think you really cracked the code of being able to do that type of work, because you created the phased project thing, and you have been able to implement, like, even over a course of many years, a project in someone's home to get it to where you think it should need to go, or where you've decided that's serves the client the best. Yeah, no, where I've worked with the client to understand their goals and to understand their budgets and what they want for a house. It doesn't have anything to do with what I want to do. I just know how to, I know what the physical steps are to get to the goal they need to reach. Well, I understand, and I'm really confident in the starting point. Another really interesting thing is that when you do some work, some seal and insulate work specifically to a house, it changes the dynamics of the rest of the house. So especially in a phased environment, you don't know what's going to change. So I've got, this is what I would recommend should be the first step. And then this is the second step. Pretty sure this is it. What kind of budget size chunks do you have available if you're, comfortable discussing it? So, and I will tell you, because this is circled back, which is really cool. I think I met Sam and Sarah back in, it might have been 2019 or 2020. I'll look and see what the date is. But they have a modest Cape Cod over in northern Kentucky, and their primary bedroom has a sloped ceiling on the second floor, 2 stories above a tuck-under garage, and it was always hot. So Tommy and I went and did our thing. We crawled all through every attic. And when we go crawl through an attic, we crawl through the attic, the whole thing. We don't put our head up in there and look around, head on a periscope. We go and we look and we dig through and we take pictures of that house. Here is a chase. Here is a dead squirrel. Here is, this is everything. So I did that for Sam, and Sarah came back with the report. And he said, well, we definitely want to do some work, but we don't have all $20,000 in the budget, which is totally understandable. I mean, this is a young couple, they've had 1 kid since, but they had just gotten married, just bought their house. They don't have 20 grand laying around. But Sam and Sarah had learned enough about home performance to know that that's what they wanted for this house. So Sam told me that he would get bonuses a couple times a year, once a year, whatever, $3,000 or $4,000. So he felt like they could do their work in that $3,000 or $4,000 chunks. So I broke down the scopes into logical, there was one knee wall. It was a pretty complicated thing. So that was phase 1. And then phase 2 was the air seal, some of the other knee walls in the top attic. Phase 3 was to blow insulation. Like, we really broke it down to meet the budget. And all the time, here are the measures that I know that we should do. And I can explain each measure. If you want to tighten the budget, we can eliminate certain things. And some things I'll be, okay, well, you can do that, but it might have this impact later. Or,
I wouldn't necessarily eliminate that because it's really important, but I'd be okay changing this from, polystyrene board on the backside of a knee wall to Tyvek. If you want to save a couple bucks, you're going to lose a thermal break, but you're still going to get an airtight knee wall. So you want to save $500-600, let's do that if you want. So we worked on that project for a few years, and it stalled a little bit a couple years ago. Let me think. Oh, they were going to remodel the basement. And so we knew the basement rim joist was one of the last things to go. Oh, we've got the whole top done. The attic, everything is done. The primary bedroom is still hot in the summer, which is no surprise. It would have been diminishing return. Like, we looked at raising the roof. We looked at all kinds of stuff. It's got fiberglass in the slope. Got can lights. Homeowners sealed the can lights. Oh, there's another thing. I love having interactive homeowners. I love bringing them into the process.
You do.
And so
the best at that I'm seeing. Yep.
Yep. So walking through with them, duct sealing, I could charge you $1,900 to seal the ducts in the basement, or I can send you a little document, and I'll even bring over a tub of mastic, a tube of mastic, provide your own incense if you want to do some smoke testing. But I'll show you how to do this totally boring work. Have some buddies over, grab a case of beer, put on some podcasts, and seal your duct work. Or pay me to do it. I don't care. Whichever you want to do. But this is something, as is most air seal work, it's technical because you have to know where to put it and what material to use and respect moisture and respect moisture and respect moisture and respect moisture. But with proper guidance, pretty much anybody can do this air sealing work. Oh, except for the fact that it's dirty, nasty, dark, super hot, usually super cold sometimes. But I have met a lot of homeowners that want to jump in and, will you train me to do it? Or I can't afford to do it. I've had a few DIY/pro projects where I'll literally train the homeowners to do the work. I'll give them a couple examples. They'll go and seal their own knee walls. I'll come back a few weeks later, check them, put them through the walk of shame, and tell them, well, here's another epic failure, buddy. We'll test things with the blower door. Really engage them. And then also I'll take care of the hard parts. So things that require like 2-part kit foam or whatever, some places where they can't get to, deconstruction, we'll go in and do those kind of specialty things. But the homeowner saves, the one, forget his name now. But, my estimate for his project was $12,000 and he got it for $3,000 because he paid for material and some consulting fees for me. Including all the blower door testing and everything. So really cool. And then the homeowners, the pride of ownership is, people own what they help create. And when they're doing things in their own home, especially to solve problems of comfort in their homes for their families, there is nothing more rewarding for a certain type of person than to get in there and do it themselves and to do the grueling, nasty, the grunt work, and then feel and live the benefits for the rest of your life in that house. And you can remember how this house felt before and how the house feels after. It's transformational. So the GCEA, and I battled them furiously. I battled the way they treated the contractors, the way they changed the program. They would yank the rug out from under us. They would say, okay, well, you have to have XYZ, all this work done by July 1st or the funding's going to get cut. Well, we don't have the workforce to do that. We don't have the capacity to meet your deadlines, but we had to do it anyway. And it was torture. It was hell to do that. So we'd go through, we remember those deadlines and you had to get the assessments done by a certain date, and the rebates were ridiculously high, like $6,000, right? When it started.
For the homeowners, yeah.
For the homeowners,
for sure, yeah.
It was a 50% matchup, so you could do $12,000 worth of work, and they would get
the program sold itself. I mean, people did the work because you could get $6,000 to put into your house. I mean, that's the bottom line. That's why they did the work, and it caused a lot of good work to get done. But as soon as the program went away, it went right back to the HVAC contractors got the comfort calls, and we didn't get any of the work, and home performance sort of dwindled down. How do you think that HVAC contractors can integrate best? I know you've had some really cool interactions where you team up with HVAC contractors and that sort of thing. So tell us a little bit what your thoughts on that, the HVAC home performance intersection there.
Yeah, sure. So,
which now, by the way, just let me plug one thing, permanent load reduction specialist. is the HVAC home performance specialist.
Yeah. Okay. We had to do another acronym. I'm not really. I don't like the acronym. We need to do something catchier. I don't know. And really, we have to have another acronym?
I think so.
Okay.
Anyway. Tell us how you feel about HVAC and home performance.
But permanent load reduction specialist. That is true. I am excited. Like, that's right. It is a permanent, which I love. It's permanent. Yep. This isn't something that we're going to put in and have to replace it in
permanent investment in your home. Yep.
Permanent investment in your home.
Yep.
So a permanent load reduction. And if you think about load reduction, let's talk about that for just a minute, especially in today's kind of economic climate. Data centers use a lot of electricity, right?
Yep.
So as data centers are using a lot of electricity, what's going to happen? And we're in Ohio. I'm in Ohio. So in Ohio, we have these utilities, and maybe leave it in. Maybe we've got some corruption all the way at the top between certain utility companies and certain legislators who are in jail, and who knows how far it goes. And these people are in
that
office
did happen.
now.
Yeah.
It did happen.
It is a thing.
It is a thing, and the ratepayers are still paying for that. Mm-hmm. And it was bribery, and it was extortion, and there was a lot of money, and Duke customers, First Energy customers in Ohio are paying for that now. Anyway, let me get off that.
Hey, let's get off that. Really quick, we're running out of time. Let me get your thoughts on HVAC and home performance. I want to hear about your relationships and how you formed them, that sort of thing, because it's kind of unique.
Okay, so now I'm stuck on load reduction specialist. And I am going to say, because I got to say this, listen.
Yep.
When we're doing air seal work, when we're doing insulation work, when we are permanently reducing the load of that house, we are future-proofing that family from the utility monster that is always looming.
1,000%. Yep.
If utility rates double and your Duke bill is $200 a month, it's $400 a month. If your Duke bill was, and it's Duke, Ohio, where we are, if your utility bill was $600 a month and you're barely scraping by, what happens when it doubles and it's $1,200 a month? This is a huge burden.
Yeah. Huge
burden on the working class, on poor folks. It's a huge burden. So when we reduce the consumption and we do it permanently, it is future-proofing that family, and it is protecting that family's finances.
And future people that may own that home. They may not always be the same homeowner, so it stays with the home. Yeah.
That's right, stays with the home. In addition to making it just healthier, safer, comfortable, all that stuff. Okay, so you wanted to know about HVAC contractors. So an HVAC system, when it's out in the middle of a park shelter, it's not going to heat or cool that space very well because the sides are open. Right?
Correct.
So let's start there.
The old screen porch analogy.
Well, let's take that HVAC system, which is properly sized for that size shelter, but it's not working. It's not heating in the winter and it's not cooling in the summer because there are no sides on that structure. So let's move the HVAC system into a log cabin. A cabin nearby, it's a historic, it's in the same park. We put the HVAC system properly sized, et cetera, into the log cabin, and you can see through the chinks in the wood, and so that's more of the screen porch than the open shelter. But that HVAC system isn't going to heat and cool that cabin either, even though it's the right size for that square footage. And I've looked at it with my thumb and I've guessed it's, per tonnage thing. It still doesn't work. Well, if it doesn't work, I tell you what, we should probably just make it a bigger HVAC system. So let's make it a bigger cooling system because we know that these log cabins are really drafty. So let's make a bigger HVAC system so all the humid air is still going to come in, but now we're going to attempt to condition all that humid air that's coming in. A lot of HVAC contractors are in the business of upgrading equipment. That's what they do. They swap the boxes. They leave the ductwork in place that was there because it worked, right? It delivered. The comfort delivery system, wasn't that one of the things that we were changing the words about a few years ago? So the comfort delivery system, meaning ductwork, if it worked for the last one, it's got to work for this one. And none of it's accurately designed. It's just slammed in there by whoever's building. And so really when you're thinking about heating and cooling, it's a big difference between having that shelter in the park versus having the log cabin versus having an airtight bubble where it's super easy to heat and cool because there's no outside air coming in and out. So three totally different sized and configured systems to handle each of those different types. And having the HVAC contractor who understands that, well, let's just say in this region, they're really few and far between. In fact, there's one in our region who I feel like just totally gets the interface between the building envelope and the HVAC system. So, and then there's another one who does a really nice job with it. It's not like intuitive just yet, but he does. So both of them understand how important the envelope is, and also not just the envelope, but the envelope decisions. So when you make decisions for an envelope and the tightness, and then a good qualified HVAC contractor takes that information to a designer to do the manual J calculation, which is the correct way to do it. Once the correct inputs are there, and one of the correct inputs is a blower door number, rather than using all the defaults, anybody who's going to do a good manual J design calc is going to want to know the specifics of what you're going to do to every area in that house thermally. And also, what is your final blower door number going to be? I mean, I guess, if somebody wants to do a preliminary or a starting blower door number, which, a side note, I find people really don't care to spend the money to do a blower door test in the beginning. They don't really care to spend the money for my big, pretty report. What homeowners do want is for me to go through and look through everything and crawl to every end of the attic, make a little list on my iPad with some pictures, talk through everything with them, come up with a plan of action with them, break it down into bite-sized chunks however they want. And then nowadays I just email that to them on the spot, no pricing or anything. Email that to them on the spot with a clear path forward. This is the next steps. If you want to keep me engaged as a consultant, I'll work through the process of taking bids from contractors, however you want to do that. So leave with that solid path forward.
One thing I like about what you've done is with your couple of HVAC contractors is you train them for the clues and signs when to call you, and they know, call Julie. They'll very easily say, hey, you need to call this lady and get the rest of this figured out before we come back to the house. Like you've trained those guys up to know when to draw that line in the sand, so to speak. Yeah,
I'm not going to take credit for it because specifically the one, he got it. I mean, he got it. He got it early on he was one of the original HVAC contractors with the GCEA, and it was why I gravitated toward him because he has got a really nice book of business. They've been in business since 1935. They do all the work. They do boilers. They have their own fab shop, HVAC fab shop. So that means a lot to me. They don't have to just get a bunch of pieces from the supplier. They actually will fabricate specific duct sizes, shapes, configurations in their shop, and then bring it out to the job to put it in place rather than having to field fabricate and kind of work around whatever the supply house had in stock and all that stuff. So much better delivery system. But early on, Chris started telling his clients, I can fix your HVAC system. I can spend $20,000 to do that, but you're still not going to be actually call Julie first.
He's good at that. He's so good at just keep making his clients comfortable with whatever the solution is that he actually thinks, and just being able to incorporate you right in. So I'm completely out of time. What's something you want to leave everybody with?
Take your time and understand the work. Understand what to do. Really understand. Am I talking to professionals or am I talking to homeowners?
Professionals. This is going out mostly B2B.
Yeah. Okay. So the devil's in the details, and it is difficult, but it's not insurmountable to talk about the details of home performance work with clients in a way they understand. So the one I always use for air sealing is the fuzzy wool sweater, and people remember that for years. So it's a cold day outside, so you go out and you got a nice thick fuzzy wool sweater. It's really cozy, so you go out there and you're like, ooh, this is cool, I'm warm. Well, all of a sudden the big wind comes up and it goes right through your sweater and you're freaking miserably cold, even though you've got this thick wool sweater on. This is pretty awful. Well, how do you solve that? Well, go get a jacket, a windbreaker, or anything to put over that sweater. And now, because the air can't get through that sweater, the heat is staying in. And so I'm warm now that I have the windbreaker. Same sweater, and the sweater's doing the insulation work, but that windbreaker is doing the air sealing work. So understanding that as your building envelope, we want to do everything we can to keep that fuzzy wool sweater and windbreaker aligned, continuous, and contiguous to make your full envelope. And that just, things like that just resonate with people.
Sure.
So take the complicated concepts and don't expect that people won't understand what you're talking about. But do introduce them and take the time to do it and ask them questions and find out their understanding. So, these are people making big decisions about their homes. Don't assume what their budget might be. Don't assume that this is the market, this is what the market will bear. No. Find out what their goals are and find out what they're comfortable doing. Find out if they're comfortable doing any of the work themselves. How do they want to live in their home? How long are you going to be there? All that stuff. So just partner with the homeowner. It is expensive. It's not a cookie cutter thing. You don't just bang them out one after the other. And same with the installation of a good high quality home performance project. Don't just get in there to get out. Get in there to do it thoroughly. If you mess up and if you underbid a job, suck it up, eat it, track it, understand then when you went wrong, and the next one, price it right. And when you price it right, it's a little scary because I'm never going to get a job again. That's bunk. You will get the job as long as you explain what you're doing in their homes and you can explain, well, this is the number of hours to do it. And I know because I've crawled through the attic with a can of foam and I know I've measured how long it took me to do it. This is how long it takes to do it. Would you like to join me in the attic? It may surprise you what people are willing to spend. And again, maybe it's overtime. So just listen to the stories that your clients tell you, the stories that the house tells you, put your experience in and just be that partner to the homeowner and to that home. So I think I love
that. Listen to the story that the house tells you. That is super. That's yep. Well said and super important. All right, let's end it there. Cool. Thank you very much for coming on.
We'll do it again because there's so much more.
Yeah, we'll definitely do it again. We have a lot to talk about, you and I, so for sure. Hey, everybody. Thanks for stopping by. If you'd like to learn more about the podcast or HVAC 2-Home Performance and any of our services, be sure to check us out on our website at HVAC2homeperformance.com. Also, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel at HVAC2HP and find us on Spotify and Apple. While you're at it, leave us a review. The HVAC ADHD Vodcast is produced and edited by the team at Palm Tree Pod Co. Anthony Palmer is the executive producer, Bo Patton is our technical director. Nolan Gray is our audio engineer, and Caitlin Krings is the head of digital. The content for this episode is created by me. Hooday, go Bengals!